Hello, my fair friends. I'm Ruby Ruse. This is Baby Bunny, and welcome to Fairy Fortunes. Today we're continuing our series on the fairy fortune cards, talking about fairy fortunes and how they correlate directly to the Renaissance divinational system of geomancy. If you missed our part 1 video, I will link it below in the comment section below, so please be sure to check it out. It is one of our longer videos, but it does include quite a bit of information, and I promise that this one will be much shorter than that one. So in today's video, I'd like to talk about the next two cards featured in the Fairy Fortune system, and the first one being the Fairy Queen. Now, in Geomancy, this card correlates to the symbol of Fortuna Major. And I'm sure you're shocked to know that Fortuna Major in Latin means major fortune. So in Geomancy, Fortuna Major represents kind of an inner success. So your life is manifesting what you want because you have finally come to a place where you have an understanding of what you're going after, and you are able to pursue that because you have an inner confidence that is helping you lead the way. And so that, to me, really resonates with the Fairy Queen. Now, the Fairy Queen is not necessarily one type of fairy creature. I'm sure that within all the genres of the different fae folk that are from around the world, they all have their leaders and their queens and kings and princesses and princesses of their own. But this is a symbol that features wildly through our stories of fairyland here in modern times. Some of my favorite stories that have been told through the ages, for example, would be the Lord of the Rings saga by J.R.R. Tolkien. And one of the most prominent fairy queen characters is the Queen Gladriel of the Elves that appears later in the books. And so Gladriel is definitely a perfect example of a fairy queen character. So once again, with Geomancy and again with fairy fortunes, is that the fairy queen is usually always a good character, but it really depends on the situation and on the question itself, what that is. So because if you think about the Fairy Queen, when she appears, it may not be a perfect time in your life. You actually may be struggling. But the idea behind the Fairy Queen is that she is an indication that even though you may be suffering, even though you may be going through trials and tribulations, is that it's really encouraging you that if you dig deep into your own self, you do have the tools available to you to weather the storm. And as I explained in the first video, but I will continue to explain for those of you who are just now joining us about this episode of Fairy Fortunes, is that when I created the Fairy Fortune system, is that I wanted to capture the fae elements, and I felt that Geomancy was already a divinational system that worked well with the fae, because Geomancy is all about earth energies, and that is certainly what the fae represents. The fae are definitely spirits of nature itself. But with me, my magic predominantly comes from my music, and so I wanted to create a divination system that incorporated a musical element to it. So all of the fairy creatures in my card selections have a unique song that goes with them. And so with the Fairy Queen, make way for the Queen of the Fae. Your fortune is hers to convey. With strength and with grace, success you'll embrace, prosperity without delay. And so the idea is that good fortune is coming to you because you do have the strength to weather any storms that you have, provided that you trust your own instincts and you trust in yourself. And that is the message of the Fairy Queen. And as I was explaining in the last video, is that in Geomancy, these characters that I created into fairy creatures have mathematical representations. And so here is the mathematical representation of the Fairy Queen. 2 dots, 2 dots, 1 and 1, which kind of looks like a staff being held, and that is the mathematical representation of the Fairy Queen. The second card that I would like to talk about in the Fairy Fortune system is Konuncio, the centaur. The centaur, of course, is a character from Greece. Now, the mistake that people often make with the centaur is that they say that the centaur is half horse, or they say that the centaur is half human, but that is actually not quite true. The centaur is both half human and half horse, and he is neither half human, nor is he half horse. He is both of those things that unite together and exist simultaneously in the same plane. So he is a contradiction and a joining all in one together. And so the music that goes with Konuncio is: Konuncio, centaur is wild, capricious yet you'll be beguiled. Reverse and unite, converse in a right, is friendship you'll want reconciled. So as the song suggests, Konuncio is a coming together. It is also very good for friendships especially, and for communication, because Konuncio seeks to bring things together. So it is a card that represents good luck in communication and a joining of friendships. And here we have, on this other side here, we have the mathematical representation, the geomantic figure of Konuncio, which means, I'm sure you're shocked to know, in Latin means conjoining. I know, that's shocking, isn't it? So here we have 2 dots followed by 1, and 2 again. And here, if you notice, it almost makes an X marks the spot here. And that is very much to show a collection, a very marked space, and that is the energy that surrounds the centaur. I definitely wanted to have a fairy being that represented that energy of things being both and neither at the same time, and existing as something new and unique in one space together. And that is the nature of Konuncio the centaur. If you would like to learn more about geomancy, I did recommend this book in the previous video, but it bears mentioning again, especially for those of you who are now just joining us. This is one of my favorite books on geomancy. This is The Art and Practice of Geomancy by John Michael Greer. This was written in the present era, and John Michael Greer is an active blogger, so please Google him and look him up on the internet. He is a brilliant archdruid and has a lot to say. But this book is very user-friendly, it's very thorough, it explains each of the mathematical figures and also goes through how to cast those figures in a geomantic reading, which is a little bit different than the fairy fortune cards. So I highly, highly, highly recommend this book. You can also visit www.fairyfortunes.com. On the blog portion of our website, I do talk about both the Fairy Queen and Konuncio on the blog, so you can learn more about where those characters come from and how they might apply to a fairy fortune reading. Finally, I'd like to introduce something new, is that Often when we are learning a new divination system, a great way to resonate with those energies and learn more about those figures in a meditative practice is that we've seen the popularity of coloring books coming up in the modern times, which is a great meditation way to learn about the figures. And so Bunny and I are offering the Fairy Fortunes coloring book. This features all of the 16 characters. I was looking to show you the Fairy Queen, but I can't find her in the coloring book right this second, but I assure you she is in there. So we are selling these on our website for $15. So I hope you will consider, if you are interested in learning more about geomancy and the Fairy Fortune divination system, that you will consider visiting and buying one of our beautiful coloring books. So I hope you enjoyed this video. There will be more coming in the future. So this is our series on Fairy Fortunes and Geomancy. Until next time, have a fairyful day.